With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, representing Algeria in the high-level segment of the 18th session of the United Nations General Assembly, took part today in New York in the official launch ceremony of the Global Declaration on the Protection of Humanitarian Workers. And in the wake of the unprecedented recognitions of the State of Palestine, Palestinian officials insisted that these recognitions must be translated into concrete measures and pressure the Israeli occupation to halt its aggression and respect international law. And the president of the Sahrawi Arab Republic, Ibrahim Ghali, has affirmed that any solution that does not respect the will of the Sahrawi people is totally rejected. Those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. I'm Asia Bukar. Good afternoon. First in the news, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has instructed the government to carry out the tasks entrusted to it with great rigor, ordering the preparation of presentations and sector action plans to be presented at the next meetings of the Council of Ministers. More details with Jamal Salmani.
Chairing a meeting with the Council of Ministers, the President insisted on the need to relaunch the work of the government with efficiency and effectiveness, each in its area of competence, and through action on the ground for the management of public affairs. He also called on the new government to learn from past experience and move forward, relying on approaches that have demonstrated their effectiveness and efficiency for the benefit of citizens, stressing that Algeria, which is advancing surely, thanks to the efforts of its children, needs combined efforts and total coordination between the members of the government to ensure overall immunity in all sectors and gain credibility with public opinion by providing solutions capable of strengthening the internal front. In the same context, the President of the Republic underlined the need to place citizens and their concerns at the center of priorities in action plans, with a view to providing lasting and definitive solutions. The President of the Republic pointed out that Algeria is not managed according to an austerity approach, but has adopted intelligent management, which is fully in line with the heart of the presidential project, aimed at raising Algeria to the rank of emerging countries through the achievement of quality socio-economic development.
Prime Minister Sifir Rayeb has inspected the container terminal project at the port of Janjani in Djidal province. This was part of a working visit to the province on behalf of President Abdelmajid Tebboune. The port of Janjani is one of the largest ports in the Mediterranean basin and a logistical pillar for boosting Algerian exports. Earlier, the Algerian Premier inaugurated the Ekatama agri-food, oilseed crushing and vegetable oil extraction complex in Djidal. The Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, representing Algeria in the high-level segment of the 18th session of the United Nations General Assembly, took part today in New York in the official launch ceremony of the Global Declaration on the Protection of Humanitarian Workers. During the ceremony, the Minister of State signed the declaration aimed at strengthening protections for humanitarian workers and ensuring safe and hindered aid delivery. The launch comes amid rising attacks on aid staff, particularly in Gaza. And also, Mr. Attaf has delivered a speech in New York during the 7th session of the African Union Committee of 10 Summit on the Reform of the Security Council. Mr. Attaf marked the 20th anniversary of the Isolwini Consensus, stressing Africa's progress in 3 areas: gaining wider support for its common position, uniting the continent to address historical injustice, and providing or proving Africa's readiness to contribute to global security with commitment and dedication.
As we mark the 20th anniversary of the Isolwini Consensus and the CERT Declaration, we stand together to take stock of 2 decades of tireless efforts by Africa to correct a long-standing historical injustice. Algeria believes that our action has made a significant breakthrough in 3 aspects. First, Africa has succeeded in broadening the base of support for its common position. Today, our common position enjoys growing support among UN member states and interest groups. Second, Africa has also succeeded in fostering a global understanding of the particularity of its case. The reason being, on one hand, that our position embodies the collective will of the 55 member states of the African Union, and on the other hand, that it aims first and foremost to correct the historical injustice inflicted upon our continent. Third, and perhaps more crucially and decisively, Africa has proven to the world that it is ready to contribute its fair share to the collective security system with commitment, resolution, and dedication.
He stressed that Africa, through the Eighth Way mechanism, contributes selflessly to global peace, while warning that the UN Security Council is facing near paralysis.
Through the A3 mechanism, Africa has demonstrated that it harbors no ambitions other than to make a selfless contribution to enable the Security Council to fully assume its responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. The road to fulfilling our mandate remains long and fraught with challenges. The collective security system is going through an ever-deepening crisis. Its main tool, the UN Security Council, is in a state of almost complete paralysis.
Mr. Attaf emphasized the two priorities to secure support for the UN aspirations.
In view of this situation, our commitments are twofold. At the internal level, we must safeguard the unity that has been our greatest strength and most valuable asset. We have all seen how this paid off with the African Union becoming a full member of the G20. We should therefore give due consideration to the compelling need to put our house in order by getting all African countries recommit and re-engage under the umbrella of the African common position. At the external level, our committees ought to remain fully engaged in the intergovernmental negotiations process, IGM. Our roadmap should include engagements with all stakeholders to build on the progress achieved so far, with the ultimate goal of garnering the widest possible understanding and support for Africa's legitimate aspirations and fair objectives.
At the end, Mr. Attaf affirmed that Africa must remain faithful to its common position as it is fair, sound, and the only path to a stronger multilateral system grounded in the UN Charter. And following the 7th summit of the African Union Committee of 10, President of Sierra Leone and CITAN coordinator Julius Maada Bio has addressed the media marking 20 years of the Eswatini Consensus as Africa renewed its call for fair representation in the UN Security Council. Mr. Maada Bio stressed Africa's call for permanent Security Council seats as a matter of justice, warning that its continued exclusion undermines the Council's legitimacy.
The demand for not less than 2 permanent seats with all the rights and prerogatives of membership, together with 2 additional non-permanent seats, has never been a plea for charity. It is a principled call for justice, equity, and the correction of Africa's historic exclusion. Over the past 2 decades, Africa has spoken with one voice. The C10 has safeguarded the unity of the common African position, advanced high-level advocacy across all regions, and secured wide recognition that Africa is not only a priority, but also a special case. The adoption of the Pact for the Future in 2024, together with the African reform model, makes clear that Africa's demand is no longer marginal. 8 decades after the founding of the United Nations, Africa still remains excluded from permanent membership in the Security Council. This exclusion is indefensible and continues to undermine the legitimacy and credibility of the Council.
And that was the statement of the President of Sierra Leone, Julius Maada Bio. And now the President of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, has reaffirmed that any solution that does not respect the will of the Sahrawi people is totally rejected. Ms. Hurtshafi has the details.
During his meeting with the personal envoy of the United States Secretary General for Western Sahara, Mr. Staffan de Mistura, Mr. Brahim Ghali emphasized the determination of the Polisario Front to continue its cooperation with the efforts of the United Nations and the African Union AU to achieve a peaceful, just and lasting solution allowing the decolonization of Western Sahara, the last colony on the African continent, in accordance with the objectives and principles of the United Nations Charter, its resolutions, as well as the objectives and principles of the Constitutive Act of the AU and the relevant rules of international law, reported the Sahrawi press agency. In this context, Mr. Ghali reiterated the Polisario Front's commitment to engage constructively and positively in the UN-sponsored peace processes in Western Sahara. He further affirmed that the only way to achieve a peaceful, just and lasting settlement is through the exercise by the Sahrawi people of their unwavering and imprescriptible right to self-determination and independence in complete freedom and democracy, stressing that any solution that does not respect the will of the Sahrawi people is totally rejected. He warned of the serious danger this could represent for peace, security and stability in the entire region. The President of the Sahrawi Republic also called on the UN, particularly the Security Council, to take all necessary measures to enable the UN mission for the referendum in Western Sahara, MINURSO, to carry out its mandate and organize a free and fair referendum under the UN supervision to complete decolonization in Western Sahara.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and in an unprecedented diplomatic shift, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia and Portugal have officially recognized the state of Palestine, joining more than 150 countries that have already taken this step. This wave of recognitions are considered a firm push for the two-state solution and put direct pressure on the Israeli occupation. In a decisive moment for British diplomacy, Prime Minister Keir Starmer resolutely announced the official recognition of the state of Palestine, reaffirming the United Kingdom's commitment to justice and peace in the Middle East.
Today, to revive the hope of peace and a two-state solution, I state clearly, as Prime Minister of this great country, that the United Kingdom formally recognises the state of Palestine. We recognised the state of Israel more than 75 years ago as a homeland for the Jewish people. Today, we join over 150 countries who recognise a Palestinian state also.
And from Canberra, the Australian Prime Minister declared his country's historic decision to recognise the state of Palestine.
Effective today, Sunday, the 21st of September 2025, the Commonwealth of Australia recognises the state of Palestine. We have had in Australia a long-term position on a bipartisan basis of two states.
And with a firm call for peace and solidarity, Portugal's foreign minister expressed his country's official recognition of the state of Palestine, underscoring his country's desire to strengthen ties of friendship with the Palestinian people.
On September
21st, Portugal officially recognized the Palestinian state. As Portugal recognizes the state of Palestine, it reaffirms its desire to strengthen its friendly ties with the Palestinians. We call from the bottom of our hearts for an end to hostilities and for an access to humanitarian aid to pave the way for peace.
And today, France, along with Andorra, Belgium, Luxembourg, Malta and San Marino, also are expected to confirm their official recognition of the state of Palestine during a high-level international conference co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. And now the Palestinian leadership welcomed the recent wave of international recognition of the state of Palestine with deep gratitude and hope. More with Jamal Salmani.
In a message delivered during the high-level UN conference, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas thanked the countries that have taken this courageous step, calling it a long-awaited act of justice and a legitimate recognition of the Palestinian people's unwavering right to self-determination. From Ramallah, senior Palestinian Authority officials emphasized that this series of recognitions constitutes a diplomatic victory that reinforces the legitimacy of the Palestinian cause in the eyes of the international community. At the same time, they insisted that these declarations must be translated into concrete measures such as effective pressure on the Israeli occupation to halt its aggression and respect international law. For his part, the Palestinian ambassador to Algeria, Faiz Abu Aita, welcomed the recognition of the Palestinian state.
يعني لا شك أنه هذه خطوة مهمة جدا.
There is no doubt that this is a very important step, a historic step, a major milestone in the history of the Palestinian people, their struggle and their resistance. Today these countries were compelled to take a step forward and recognize the state of Palestine without reaching an agreement with the occupation or needing the occupation's approval. It is a correction of a historical path in which they erred, a path through which they helped establish this criminal entity on the land of Palestine. Therefore, this is a rightful due for the Palestinian people. In 1988, Algeria was considered the gateway of Palestine to international legitimacy, as it recognized the state of Palestine during the National Council session, in which late Yasser Arafat declared the establishment of the state of Palestine 37 years ago here in Algeria.
Several Arab countries and regional organizations welcomed this new wave of recognitions. Saudi Arabia praised these countries' serious commitment to the peace process and expressed its hope that more nations will follow suit to allow the Palestinian people to live in peace on their land. The state of Kuwait hailed the move as a fundamental contribution to strengthening the prospects for peace in the region, while the Arab League, through its Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghaid, described it as historic and affirmed that it opens a realistic path toward a peaceful solution to the conflict based on the 1967 borders and with East Jerusalem as the capital of the future Palestinian state.
Meanwhile, in Europe, Germany said the creation of a Palestinian state must be the final outcome of a political process, stressing that this process must begin now. Meanwhile, in Italy, unions and social organizations have called for strikes, blockades, and demonstrations to denounce the genocide in Gaza, demanding economic and diplomatic sanctions against the Israeli occupation. Hundreds of young people in Rome chanted "Free Palestine," expressing their rejection of what they consider a systematic extermination of the Palestinian people. And Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has announced measures to end the genocide in Gaza, including a legal and total embargo on the sale and purchase of arms from the Israeli occupation. Although the embargo has been in place de facto since October 2023, it is expected to be officially approved by the Council of Ministers on Tuesday, consolidating the decision, but it was cancelled. Now, the recognition of the state of Palestine occurs in the context of an ongoing Israeli genocide against the Gaza Strip, which has reached catastrophic levels. Dozens of people were killed and others injured as Israeli fighter jets struck a residential building in Al Samar area in central Gaza City. In the meantime, one civilian was killed and others were wounded in Israeli airstrike targeting a house near Al-Shifa Tower west of Gaza. A child was killed when a drone struck a vehicle in the Al Farouk neighborhood east of the town of Al Zawaida in the central Gaza Strip. And Israeli warplanes also carried out intensive strikes on civilian homes near Al-Quds Open University northwest of Gaza City. And in parallel, the Israeli occupation forces continue their incursions into the occupied West Bank as today they stormed the al-Shawayat neighborhood in Al-Birra while Israeli settlers attacked the outskirts of the town of Sinjil near Ramallah and once again stormed the courtyards of Al-Aqsa Mosque protected by Israeli police. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has condemned the Israeli attack on the southern city of Beit Jbeil, calling on the international community to pressure the Israeli occupation to respect the ceasefire agreement. Masoud Sharfi.
The Lebanese president described the Zionist airstrike as a bloody massacre which left 5 people dead, including 3 children. He said while countries are participating in the UN General Assembly in New York to discuss issues of peace building and the protection of human rights, Israel continues to violate the 2024 ceasefire agreement in southern Lebanon. He said the international community must not remain silent, calling on it to exert pressure on the occupation to withdraw its troops from Lebanese territory and respect the ceasefire. The president added that he expects decisive action from the international community, brokers of the ceasefire agreement in southern Lebanon. He said when children are dying, it is impossible to discuss the prospects for a peaceful settlement in the Middle East. Previously, the Lebanese Ministry of Health reported that an Israeli drone attack in Bint Jbeil killed 5 people, including 3 children, and that 2 other civilians were taken to hospital with injuries. The ceasefire agreement, the Zionist entity, has carried out more than 4,500 incursions into Lebanese territory since the beginning of the year. These attacks have killed 248 people and injured 675.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. That's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a cultural program compiled and presented by Jamal Salmani.
Welcome to your weekly program Destination Algeria. I'm Jamal Salmani. There are a number of great destinations in Algeria just waiting to be discovered. A curious mixture of cultures and influences, Algeria has something interesting to see in just about every city. The country is also the first largest on the African continent, so you can be sure there are plenty of towns and cities to visit. Let's visit Algeria's fascinating destinations, you and I, together. The small settlement of Jijel is located in the northeastern region of Algeria and is the administrative center and capital of the Jijel province. It is not a bustling city or town filled with nightlife and noteworthy tourist attractions. Jijel is more a resort settlement that does have a few important industries, but is a peaceful destination. In Algeria, where tourists spend most of their time relaxing on the breathtaking beaches. Jijel was originally established as a trading post that changed ownership from the Phoenicians to the Romans, onto the Arabs, and even fell into the hands of the legendary pirate Khayr ad-Din Barbarossa. Of course, most of the existence of these eras and the occupation by the French was destroyed by the 1856 earthquake that left nothing but memories and devastation in its wake. Today, the town of Jijel has a permanent population of approximately 100,000 that concentrates mainly on the production of agricultural products and fishing. 3 larger industries, namely cork production, steel making, and leather tanning, have managed to flourish in Jijel. The cork production industry has led to the town being surrounded by vast cork tree plantations, bringing life to the landscapes. Another industry that has become vital to Algeria is the Jijel Tannery. It is the leading producer of furniture, leather crafts, and footwear in the country. Important establishments such as a mosque, hospital, and the University of Jijel are available in the town. The only noteworthy site in Jijel is the Phoenician tombs, located outside the town. These fascinating historical structures managed to survive the earthquake. Other than that, the greatest attractions to the town are the abundance of natural wonders, wildlife, birds, and the beautiful beaches. The town is mostly visited by Algerian locals who enjoy the peace and tranquility that is found there. Every so often, a foreign visitor will arrive to appreciate this scheduled getaway. Jijel can be reached by road from Algiers, Constantine, Bijaya, and Stif. The rugged landscape of the town and the magical opportunity to explore an area that has been left virtually untouched is an adventure. And being able to completely break away from the usual tourist destinations in Algeria and walk off the beaten track is a chance that should not be passed up.
Khaireddin Kashish was born in Algiers, more precisely in the old district called Bablouad. Khaireddin Kashish is a professional violinist who started his learning process in 1983. He took classes with Abdelkrim Hamsaji at the Al Fakharjia Association and with Harbit Rizqi. In 1986, he integrated the Pilot Orchestra at the Conservatoire of Algiers and continued his training with Harbit Rizqi. 4 years, participating in different projects. His favorite styles, that is to say the Andalusian, the Hausi and the Shabi, appealed to him. He collaborated with diverse Algerian artists of the same caliber as Ahmed Boualem, Kamal Bourdib, Aziz Rais, Hamidou, Nadia Ben Youssef, Naima Al-Jazairiya, Karima Sghira and Samir Toumi. In 1991, he opened up to the Algerian traditional musical repertoire, including Shawi, Kabil, Gasba, Malhoun, Sahrawi and Gnawi. In 1994, he dedicated himself to Rai music. It is the beginning of the adventure that leads to collaborations with well-known artists. In 1997, he started an international career. He traveled all over Europe, Japan, and the Middle East. In 2002, he participated to the adventure of Les Orientales, a tribute given to the Algerian musical of the 50s, leading to a tour in France, concerts in Algiers, and a CD and a DVD. Since 2007, Khaireddin Kashish was part of the jazz group from Algiers called Madar. He has also collaborated with well-known jazz musicians such as John Hassell. Recently, he started to be interested in rock and jazz, realizing interesting fusions. Different artists such as Sheikh Sidi Bemol, Jean-Alain Roussel, and his group The One regularly invite him as a guest star.